YouTube, and thanks for watching Junkworks Garage. I've been doing videos for a little over 10 years now. So in that case, a lot of my first videos that still, I think, have pretty good information in them are not being watched at all because YouTube, they're just too old for YouTube to want to use them, I guess, or put them up on their lists. So in that case, also, YouTube is not paying all that well, so hit that thumbs up and subscribe and all those good things. I appreciate it very much. But I am going to take some of those and revamp them because I was not near sadly, I was not near as good as I am now with videos. Also, since I've changed the name on my channel, some of those older ones have my old channel name, things like that on. So I'm just going to kind of cut some of that stuff out, cut some of the talking out, and try and make them a little bit better as far as the editing is concerned. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy my older video here.
I'm changing the oil on my truck. It's a 98 GMC Sierra. It's got the 454 in it. Figured since I was up under here doing the exhaust, I might as well go ahead and do the oil here. Basically, you start out, you got a 14mm socket. You want to righty tighty, lefty loosey. Make sure you have a good oil pan, something to catch the oil. I would suggest using a shorter socket than I have because I'm actually hitting my exhaust a little bit here, but we'll make this work. And the secret to pulling these bolts out is not pulling them completely out with the wrench. You want to kind of pull them out till they're loose and start dripping a little bit, but keep pressure in on the bolt and then quickly let her drop. Don't let it drop into the pan though, where it will get lost in all the oil. Luckily my pan catches the bolts pretty well. So after this, once you get this all done, you want to go up above here and you're going to want to crack open where you put your oil in, your oil cap. Now up right above the drive shaft, which as you can see that my drive shaft's out, that's a whole nother video I'll be getting to at some other point in time. After you start draining your oil here, you got to get your oil filter out, and this is one of those crappy ones. It's right up next to the exhaust manifold here that is sideways, so it's going to leak oil all over the place. Alright, well, this oil wrench is not big enough, so I grabbed my more adjustable one here. This is pretty handy. It's the universal oil wrench from, looks like Wilmar. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to take it and adjust it to the biggest size here. With a pretty big oil filter, and then you want your oil pan up underneath there, obviously, to catch the oil, because this one is gonna drip quite a bit. Basically with this one, it's the same as just any other wrench, only this one has a few more adjustability. But as soon as you turn this, you notice it gets smaller. That's what grabs a hold of the oil filter, gets small, and turns it. But anyhow, we're going to get that up on there. Boy, this thing is big. And we're going to start loosening. Stay out from underneath it. Alright, I got her loose. Boy, I don't have my my drive shaft in here, but if your drive shaft's in here, you are just going to have a fun time of oil just dumping off that thing all over the place. So I'm kind of glad that my drive shaft's not in here, although it'd be easy enough to do with the drive shaft on. It's just going to make more mess all over. You definitely want a good sized pan to catch all this oil that will, luckily it's drained out most of the way now. But, there we go, tip it up. And dump what's left in there. Boy, that thing looks like it's been around the block. I waited too long to change this oil. I gotta openly admit that. I've towed my trailer a couple times, and since I did it, and usually I like every time I tow my trailer I change the oil if I tow it any length of distance whatsoever. But we got our oil filter here, and you need to check your book for what kind of oil filter your rig needs. Pretty much, if you have any rig, it basically changes the same way. You take your oil plug out, drain it, take your oil filter out, replace it. Couple things people don't know about the oil filters though. When you put this in, since this one sits about like this, I can't put a whole lot in, but I like putting some oil into my oil filter. If your oil filter sits straight up, I'll fill this thing completely up, but since mine sits pretty sideways, I'm just going to put enough in to kind of help prime it. That way you won't get the dry start, as a lot of people say. So that's about all I can do without spilling it all over. Something else, take a little bit of your oil, your old oil, or you know, even dip your finger down into your new oil here. Actually, would probably be the better way. I usually use the old oil. And put some oil around this gasket here. Another thing, make sure on your old oil filter that this gasket is still on here. I don't know how many times I've heard about people putting new oil filters on and ending up with a huge leak because their old oil filter actually stuck onto the motor and didn't come with the oil filter, and they ended up putting two of these together basically, which will mess it up. It will leak if you do that. So make sure that your gasket here comes off with your old oil filter. Lube this up a little bit, put a little bit of oil in there, keep it from dry starting, and then stick it up in there. You guys don't need to watch me do that because you can't see it from down there anyway. So one more thing, when you put that oil filter up in there, do not use an oil filter wrench to tighten it. You tighten it by hand best you can. Really, it only needs to be snug, and it'll actually tighten up a little bit over time as it is. Another thing, speaking of by hand, when you're putting the bolt in, the oil plug in, do that as far as you can go by hand. Do not throw it up in there, grab a wrench, and God forbid use air tools or something like that on it. Use all hand tools. You don't need to be using an air tool. This is why these get stripped all the time. They do not need to be completely reefed as tight as you can. They need to be snug, but they have a little gasket in here. Most of them have a little gasket in here, and you want to make sure that's good and clean. You don't want any grime or anything like that on it, but they just need to be snug. You don't need a reef on them, and I would highly recommend just putting that in as far as you can put it by hand, and then taking your wrench and snugging it down. Well, that's about it. We'll put the oil in. You guys can choose what kind of oil and what, based on the temperature outside. Look at your book. If you're in real cold climates, you're going to use lighter weight. If you're in warmer climates, you're going to use a little bit heavier. That's all based on where you live, what type of car you have, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll let you all choose what kind of brands and types you need for your car. Well, other than putting however many quarts of oil your rig also uses, this thing actually uses 7 quarts of oil in this thing. So that's about it.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed that and got something out of it. Now get out there and get your junk working. Thanks for watching Junk Works Garage, where I'm proud to say I'm a jack of all and master none. You all have a good one.